How's it, my brews? It's been a while, hasn't it? I think the last video I uploaded was September last year. So I guess we better do a bit of a recap. First video told the story of BTR, the teenage dream, all that kind of stuff. Second video was swing arm bits. Got all the bits needed for the swing arm together. Used Cindy to CNC a few of the bits. Third video was notching and tacking the swing arm, getting all the bits into the fixture, ready to go, taking the swing arm out of the fixture, ready to start welding. In the fourth video, we finished off the swing arm, did all of the final welding, alignment, got all the gussets and all that lot in, so she was ready to go. Then in the fifth video, started getting bits for the front triangle ready. Head tube needed some manufacturing, some work on that. Bent the seat tube, got a few other bits for the front triangle ready to go. And we also talked about the geometry, what I'm going for on this frame of mine. She's a big one, there's no doubt about that, but so am I. In this video, we're gonna start building the front triangle. Set the fixture, notch the tubes, get the front triangle tacked and welded. So yeah, come along for the ride. As I said in the last video, editing of this video series has had to take a bit of a back seat. Other things have taken over. The need to pay rent is a big one. But yeah, I've also launched another brand, Rat Bikes. So yeah, if you like this video series, you want to see more of it, jump on the website, get one of these t-shirts, get yourself set up as a prospect. Or if you want to invest in the brand, I've also got a white version of this t-shirt with investor on here. It's 50 quid. It's a lot of money for a t-shirt, but you can wear it with pride and let everyone know that you backed the rat when it mattered. Right, that's enough of that rubbish. Talking is not going to get that bike built, so we better get cracking, shouldn't we? This is the frame fixture. Academy Tools, they're no longer in business. I think they're starting up again as one tube at a time. I don't know what the deal is there. It's made out of cheap old steel box section, not accurate, but it's got built-in adjustability and all your key points and laser alignments. You can get it all set up. Once you've got the positions of everything set where you want it, you can laser alignment, make sure your frame's spot on. Works a treat, got two of them. Love them. Can be a bit of a hassle to set up because each time you've got to check the alignment and things can be a bit painful, but it's worth it. They're super cheap. This here spreadsheet is all the numbers that I need to build the frame. Gives me all the jig numbers and all the numbers that I need to notch the tubes. So we need the jig setup numbers. First of all, let's crack on. So we've got a stop in there that catches our ruler, and then we can measure backwards for the chainstay length. Right, we want 440 millimeters on that, because that is our chainstay length. So it really goes in here, and we use this to measure the bottom bracket drop. So we want 15 millimeters on this one. If we need to adjust the alignment of the rear axle, we can undo these bolts and adjust these grub screws to adjust the position of how the rear axle is held on there based on what the laser tells us. And it's just a case of repeating the process for the front. Now it's the case of setting the head angle, seat angle. Do that with a digital angle finder. Right, now we want a nice crisp 62.5. See what I mean about this being a bit of a faff? It's can be a bit tedious. And then we need 77.1 on the seat tube. Whee. So in order to check this jig for accuracy, we have this little nubbin that goes in the bottom bracket that holds a little laser pen, and then another little nubbin that you'd stick on the head tube here or on the rear axle, and you shine that laser at this little point here and then get it to be straight all the way up. You can use this little jobby to move this side to side so you can get your laser in the middle of the line while it's here at the bottom, and then when at the top use the little grub screws to adjust this plate so you get your laser in the middle at the top. And it's the same principle at the back there. Use that thing to check it vertically, and then it butts up against here as well to check it horizontally. She is accurate. Now we can start building the frame. Yes! I'm so excited, I can't wait. I can't actually wait. It's becoming real now. Components are turning up from Hope, from Schwalbe. It's flipping mint. So excited, I can't wait to go and ride it now. Hasn't really been real up until this point. But now that the components are getting here, flipping heck, so excited. First into the fixture is the bottom bracket. Left-hand thread on the drive side of the bike. Don't fuck that up. Head tube goes in next, but it needs a breather hole. Luckily for me, the spreadsheet tells me where it's got to go. 30mm from the bottom of the head tube. We'll drill a 3mm hole, shall we? We got everything we need to get cracking then. You can see everything, it's here on the bench. Look at it. Fixture set, bottom bracket, head tube are in. And we just need to cut these tubes to length, and then we can start cracking on with the notching. So another thing I like to do once the fixture's all set up is just give a little double check to make sure that we're all in the right place. So on my spreadsheet I've got a short point measurement for all of the tubes, and that's like the deepest point of the notch at the bottom bracket to the deepest point of the notch at the head tube, and it is measuring 776 in the CAD. So I'll just lay a ruler onto here, line it up with the point that I think that I've marked on my head tube where I want it to be, and then just kind of eye it up, and I'm in the right area. So I'm happy. We can start notching the tubes. So I've got the spreadsheet here and it gives me all of the numbers that I need, but I get these from Fusion. So I'll just hop in there, grab the dimensions that I need off of the tubes, put them on the spreadsheet, and then off we go. So first one that we need is the length. And this is like the overall length of the tube once it's been notched. And that's the length that I cut the tube to. First thing I need to do though is check this tube. Check the butting profiles on it, so I can make sure that I'm cutting it in the right place. This is actually a custom made tube for styling cycles. It uses it on all these enduro frames, but it's quite a hefty old down tube, so using it for the gasser. Thanks to Styling for having gnarly tubes custom made. This is just a plain gauge 32mm by 1mm wall thickness tube. This is what's formerly known in the industry as a butt scratcher, and we use it to check the butting profiles of our bicycle tubes. It's basically just a dial gauge. Regular old dial gauge, cheap as chips one will do, and 2 long bars stuck out and something like that. And then you run your tube along it like so, and mark where the change is. See there, that's the change in wall thickness. So we'll just mark where it is. About there. And about there somewhere. Just so we've got a rough idea where it is, so we don't end up cutting through that or through here. So we'll have this short butt down by the bottom bracket. Just have the bottom bracket notch into there. Then we'll chop our little excess bit of tube off of here, and then that will be head tube end, and that super long butt. Right, so it's tube cut time. For the down tube we want 800mm length, and for the top tube we want 690. So I scratched me a little arrow where my actual cut needs to be, and I put a marker pen mark on it so I don't lose it. Let's stick my tube blocks on now. These are just 3D printed. So they're not super accurate, but I've kind of learned to work around them. got an idea to make an aluminium version of this. It should be way better. Just need the time to work on these things. Got to pay the bills. Making YouTube videos is not paying the bills either. Talking of which, if you like what's happening here and you want to see more, consider making a PayPal donation. The channel isn't monetized yet, so I'm making all these videos off my own back. Just for fun, really. Right, those are on. To the notcher. I've had this notcher on the go since day one. This is the thing that I use to make all of my bike frames. And it's been 100% made in-house. It's been through loads of modifications over the years. So at the back here, we've got a cross slide. Same at the front. We've got a big motor hidden here. And then there's a pulley underneath that cover. It drives a little belt with a roller at the back. So that roller is sort of convex, helps keep the belt straight. That's all just mounted on that cross slide at the back. You've got the big old table that it's all mounted on. We've got the cross slide at the front here. So this one feeds it in and out so that you can notch your tube. And I've got this arm set up and sort of the screw taken out of the cross slide there so that I can just use this arm to slide the cross slide back and forth nice and efficiently. Yeah, so the cross slide at the back, you use that to trim the belt across that way and also to tension the belt. So then the rollers front pop out and then they're just mounted with a little bearing like so, and a shoulder bolt that goes through, and they've got different sizes for all the different size tubes that I need to make. So first notch we're going to go for is the bottom bracket, and that's at 38. So see they're all stored down there. Started out making metal ones, and now I've got a 3D printer. I 3D print them much easier and it works just fine. Sweet. Yeah, so once you've got your roller in, you can then tension that back up. And then at the front here, just undo this and then I can rotate this to set the angle. And you can see I've got a V-block here that holds the tube on center relative to the roller at the front. This isn't the ideal way to have this set up. You'd have the center of rotation a bit further forward, and then you can have that relative to the notcher, relative to the roller, and then get much more accurate tube notches that way. But I've got ways to work around that, and we'll get into it in a bit. Now that I've got the bottom bracket notch done, I need to do the head tube. And need to get that one in the right place, which is what we use the tube blocks for, right? So the tube blocks help me clamp the tube, and then I know that that notch is relative to that block. And then this block is relative to that one, so that I can get the notch on this end, exactly perpendicular to this one, or exactly parallel if it was a top tube. Also need to get the length right, okay? So the way that I do it is cut the tubes to the length that I know that they need to be once they're notched, but that's not terribly accurate. I can stick it on the notcher, notch it until this tube is notched, but I don't know if that's exactly right. It could be a little bit longer, a little bit shorter. So that's what I've got this jobby here for. And I can lay the down tube into here, slide this one up, honk the down tube on there, and then that gives me a measurement from the short point of the notch here to the end of the tube here. And we need 767. 787 minus 767, and then that gives us the length that we need to notch that tube to. So I can scratch a line onto here and then notch to that line Always stop a little bit short and then check it in the fixture, because it's the fixture that's going to define the length of this tube rather than any other measurement. So always check in the fixture rather than relying 100% on this. So 787 minus 767 is 20 mil. So we can set our very near to 20 mil and then scratch a line onto the tube. And then we aim for that. It's back to the notcher now. Clamp the down tube back in there, making sure that I've got it in the correct orientation relative to the notch at the back here. You need to change the roller, set the angle. So the angle again is on the spreadsheet, 17.5 degrees. There, you can see there I've stopped a bit short of the line. Just want to double check it in the fixture, make sure that I haven't gone too far. Chuck the tube into the fixture. Try and get it sitting where it wants to sit. Give it a little wiggle. You can kind of see if the notches are tight or not. You can also give it a visual inspection all the way around, and it's looking pretty darn good. It's just still a bit too long, obviously, because I've left a bit on there, haven't I? So we'll go and nip that bit off, shall we? I've had that last little bit away. Notch around the bottom bracket, spectacular. Same here on the head tube. And it is bang on my line as well. Can't really see that on camera. Just there. So down tube is done. It needs a breather hole, plonking in at the top there. But other than that, down tube is done. So for the breather hole, I'll lay the tube over there on the surface plate, and then use a V-block laid on the surface plate to then run a line on the tube, and then that's on center. Same method for bottle bosses and whatnot. Right, so this end of the tube here needs cleaning up. You need to take all those burrs off. So there we go, from something like that to something like this. Now, insides need to be cleaned out as well. Obviously it needs to be bright and shiny like it is on the outside. Otherwise that brown horrible stuff in there will get included in your TIG weld, and you don't want that. Did the breather hole just the same as we did the breather hole in the head tube. Didn't miss much. Seen it all before. Right, we can do the head tube notch on the top tube now. Can't finish off the top tube until the seat tube is in the fixture, but the head tube roller is in the notch already, so let's make use of it. We want 9.3 degrees. Not sure how we're going to make the 0.3, but we'll get it close enough. Seat tube now then. This one is a bit more tricky. So we have got the bent seat tube. Now I need to make it look like that. This one's for the bottom bracket, and then that's where the down tube intersects. So yeah, this one's tricky because I can't put the old bottom bracket notch on the notcher because it's offset from the center line of the tube. So we've got to go over to old Bridget. First of all, I'm going to get some tube blocks on here just to give it a bit of stability when it's in the old mill. So putting the tube block either side of the bend there helps like level out the tube there. So hopefully once I've got this one clamped on over here, it should be flat. I'm all set up on Bridget now. You can never have too stiff of a setup with tube notching on the mill like this. My little hack with the old blocks worked pretty good. Very like 0.4 of a degree out of this end, so tweaked it a tiny bit, she was all good. C-tube goes on here now, so I can figure out the length to cut it in order to stick the topper on there. I can do this now before I put the notch in the front end because it might affect how it sits on this little fixture thing. So I've got 410 and I need it to be 309. So I can then measure that distance back from there and cut it off. Stopped well shy of where it needs to be. Just want to check it in the fixture. Better safe than sorry. So it's already sat down on the bottom bracket there, which I was not expecting. And there's a bit of a gap there. There's also another thing that we will need to check. So we've obviously set the angle of that pillar that holds the top of the seat post in place. But that relies on this jobby here, you know, sitting perfectly in line and whatnot. So I'm just going to check the angle of this seat tube, make sure that's what I'm expecting it to be. So I'm expecting to see 72.9 degrees there, and we are not. So I need some moddies. We're back in the game. Now the down tube won't fit, but this is a good thing because we can make it fit good now. Now that is what you call right on. It doesn't really get much better than that. I had to tweak a couple of the notch angles and whatnot as well, but that's no surprise really. If this tube is bent at a slightly different angle, it's going to throw things off. If the down tube, you know, is sitting at a very slightly different angle to what it says in the CAD, that's going to change the angle of the notch here. You know, it's this. These things happen. None of it's an exact science. We're all making it by hand, you know, just checking it by eye and all that sort of stuff, so not super accurate. And that's why I leave the pivot holes until the frame's all welded up, because, you know, I could drill a hole in there now before the tube goes in and gets welded, but there's no guarantee that that's going to be in the right place. And the frame moves around after welding, so, you know, weld the main front triangle up, then put the pivot holes in. Now before we get too carried away, this seat tube topper needs to go on. Oh fuck, I've made a fuck up there, haven't I? Oh, I jumped the gun there, didn't I? So where I adjusted the seat angle for this tube, it's not actually full length. So it's going to need that topper putting on, and then I'll have to check all this again. Shouldn't really matter too much though, because the angle of this is going to be the angle of this. Let me check that to notch all of this, so it should be alright. I've just got to adjust that to compensate. Seat tube is back in, and we're on 72.9 degrees on the seat tube again. And we are back in the game in terms of this notch as well. Everything is spot on like it was. Boom! It's top tube now, isn't it? So we've already notched the front end. So I've got a line scratched on the head tube there, you can see it. That's where the top tube meets up at the top. Now I need to make one on the back here to figure out where the top tube's got to go. And I measure up vertically from the top of the bottom bracket up to where the line's got to go. And I can double check kind of a little bit by placing this top tube in there, getting it to sit on this notch and see if it lines up, and it does pretty good. So the top tube is mounted into the notcher now. I've got lines scratched on it, transferred from this beauty. Angle set, 19 degrees. Let's do a notch, shall we? So this is the seat tube, that's my mark just there. I think it was a tiny bit of a tweak on the angle. It's touching on the top here but not at the bottom. I'll give it a tiny tickle. Okay, that's looking good. Final step for the top tube is a bit of breather hole drilling. Top tube be done now. We'll talk about breather holes in a bit. Next up is the brace tube, and in order to do that I need this top tube sort of held in place, otherwise it's way too much of a faff. So I'm going to go ahead and get the tubes that we've already notched up, get them cleaned out on the inside here, and then tack them into the frame. We are ready for some tacking. I'll get into some proper details about the welding process and whatnot at some other point. We've got something we can take out the fixture now. Now that that's welded up, I can start working on getting the head gusset. The reason I don't do the head gusset before is because this bit of the down tube needs a weld on it before the gusset goes in. And if you notch the gusset before you weld the frame moves and then the gusset doesn't fit anymore. So you may as well just wait until this stage and then start cracking on with the gusset. The head gusset is a bit more tricky than the rest of the tubes because it meets the top tube, head tube and down tube. So there's 3 notches on it, and to get all of those 3 lined up, it's good fun and games. And we need a 53-degree angle. Yes, I remembered that right. Got a brain like a sieve, me. It's already been wounded, look. First time out. Taking shots. It's tricky designing these in Fusion and printing them out because the shape in Fusion doesn't often match up with the tube. So it can be a bit of a pain to get it to fit. The only way that I've figured out is just backwards and forwards, go back and forth until you get something that works. Not ideal, but that's how it goes sometimes. Bosh. Guess we should clear some space out for that down tube then, should we? I've got my line scratched on there for where I'm aiming for. Chuck her in the notcher. So there's a bit of a gap there, as you can see. But we need the head tube to slide up quite a long way that way. But this tube is also going up as well, so I think we're going to be alright. As I said, these three-way notches are a bit tricky. Top tube one is looking pretty good, always usually does. It's looking quite good there. And everywhere else around, it looks quite good too. But on this side at the head tube, got a bit of a gap. Head tube notch is maybe a bit out of alignment compared to the rest, or the down tube one is out of alignment compared to the rest. If I go any deeper on the head tube here, I'm going to have to go to the down tube because we've got a gap there that needs closing up. So if I open up more gaps all the way around, then the down tube is going to need fettling. So in order to close this gap, that tube has then got to rotate clockwise, right? So I need to take a bit out of there on the down tube notch and hopefully it'll come in. You seen how nice that weld is? Ooh-wee! So it's back in here now. Obviously the tube block is going to hold it, so how am I going to twist that around to get a bit more out of one side of the tube? Well, you know, clamping it in here, as I've said before, these blocks are not super accurate, so you've got to, you know, kind of get it wiggling to make it fit in the first place. So there is a bit of wiggle room that I can kind of get it to clamp off center a little bit. I've got dreams for a better setup and I've got designs on the go and stuff, but not the time to make it. Maybe if this YouTube thing kicks off, I can make it for a video series. What do you reckon? Give me a thumbs up and a subscribe if that's what you want to see. The old head gusset is to a place I'm happy with now. She's a beauty. I guess we should talk about breather holes now then, as this is the last bit that's going to be covering breather holes. There's a breather hole here that gets covered over by the head gusset. So yeah, there's a breather hole in this tube so that the air can breathe out of this brace tube into the top tube, and then out of the top tube into the gusset. And then there's that little hole into the down tube, and then we've got a tiny little hole in the head tube, just there. So when you're welding the frame up, all the air inside the tube starts to expand from the heat, and it needs somewhere to go once it's all sealed up. So that's why we have breather holes in frames, is to let that expanding gas get out of the frame. You only need a tiny little hole, you don't need big ones. Then I actually fill that hole up in the old head tube there, so that the frame is fully sealed, no air can get in or out. Just make sure that it doesn't rust. Next up, we've got a gusset that needs to go in here for the main pivot, and put it in before we make the holes for the main pivot, because the hole's got to go through the gusset as well. Just a bit of laser cut sheet metal. All the mill scale has been ground off, and I've got this wee little doohickey here for giving it a bend. So it fits in there, clamps on, and then bendy wendy. This is obviously not a great setup for doing this. I need to make a tool so that I can use it in the fly press, but just give it a whack, old school, smash it to pieces. So clamp it down in the middle there so the flat bit don't move. Now I need that bit to fit in there. So that's all tacked in now then. Bish, bash, bosh. Quick and easy. Superstar TIG welding fanatic. Check it out. Anyway, enough of my wrapping skills. Time to put the pivot holes in. So we got main pivot in here, rocker pivot in there, and a bump stop up here. To do the old pivot holes and whatnot, we've got to mount the frame here on Cindy. We use this bottom bracket pillar down here, So we need to chase and face the old bottom bracket threads in the face of the bottom bracket, so that's all nice and square. We're also mounting off the head tube, so I want to get that chased and faced. And while we're there, we may as well do the seat tube. But before we do the seat tube, before we ream the seat tube, we need to put the seat clamp on. The reason we ream and chase everything is because it deforms during the welding. You can kind of see it a bit there where it's missed a bit during the reaming process. And the rest of it is reamed and it's just that one little section that's missing, so everything's all good. So before I go ahead and chuck the frame onto Bridget and drill the holes in it for the pivot points, I just want to make sure that it's, you know, somewhere close to where I expect it to be on the old alignment scale. So seat tube is pretty good. If both of these edges are touching, then the frame is straight. So very slight gap at the top there. Happy for that. And then similar sort of situation here at the head tube, very slight gap at the bottom. But it is well within my expected range. So let's take it off here and stick it on Bridget. That's going to be it for this video. I reckon that's long enough. It's a good point to stop. We're checking the alignment of that front triangle before we chuck it onto Bridget and start drilling holes in the frame. So yeah, thanks again for watching. Really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to watch me ramble on and build a bike frame. Links down in the description for donating, for t-shirts, for BTR website. All the links that you could possibly need is down there. So yeah, come back next time. We're going to finish off that front triangle. We'll drill holes in it to get the pivot points in. We'll get the front triangle and the rear swing arm into the frame fixture, get those pivot points welded in the right place. Basically just get the whole frame finished off, ready to go. So yeah, see you next time. Keep us sideways.